Nanochips in human brains, rocket flights, and a lot of money. These three phrases aren't a summary of what we'll present in this episode, but rather a description of a person who is said to be eccentric, called Elon Musk. A story with many ambiguous points in which an unknown young man works in games and websites development appears, and suddenly turns to biological nanosciences and projects to conquer the sky and becomes one of the most famous figures in the world. Who's Elon Musk, and is he really just a dreamer seeking fame and money, or is there another side to the story? Today we'll highlight a deep side of this controversial character to tell you about one of the most important issues in our modern world. This is the story of Elon Musk, the establishment's mysterious figure. An investor, engineer, and inventor, this is how the American-Canadian businessman born in South Africa in 1971 is known. He was the eldest son of model Mae Musk and engineer Errol Musk, and he has a younger brother and sister, and he also has a half-brother. Elon lived a very turbulent life due to his parents' divorce and fear of the future, which led him to isolation, introversion, and love of reading, especially science fiction stories. He grew up on the philosophy of the chemist Isaac Asimov, which he believes in until now, which in a meaning says, "You must take many actions and measures that will prolong civilization and reduce the possibility of a dark age." And this phrase will have great repercussions in the Golden Billion Theory, which is sought by the world's senior figures, led by Bill Gates and Elon Musk. At the age of 10, Elon developed an interest in computing and learned programming language on his own and without help. Just 2 years later, he sold an AppleSoft basic code of a video game he made himself called Blastar to a magazine called PC and Office Technology for about $500. What's unbelievable is that this small amount of money will later turn into billions of dollars. In 1992, Elon's story began to be written little by little at the University of Pennsylvania, where he received a BA in physics and economics. For the sake of money, him and his roommate rented a large, relatively cheap frat house off campus, and they transformed the 10-bedroom home into a nightclub to generate money and pay rent. After a period of time, he was able to get enough money and founded Zip2 along with his brother Kimball in 1995. Zip2 was a company that provided unlicensed online city guide software to newspapers. In 1999, Compaq bought Zip2 for $305 million and Musk's share of the sale was $22 million of his 7% stake. Elon had never dreamed of this amount before in his life, and by obtaining it, he actually entered the financial world. At the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the new one, he co-founded X.com, where he invested about $12 million in the company. The company was an online bank system that provided users with online payment services. After 1 year of incorporation, the company merged with another company called Confinity, and the merged company changed its name to PayPal. Elon used an illegal method in his marketing campaign known as viral marketing. The advertisement email received in your inbox resends itself to all email addresses you have as if you were the one who did that. And indeed, the company succeeded in gaining many new clients in no time and without paying much money. However, Elon was fired from his CEO role in PayPal after discovering that he was dealing with Bill Gates, owner of Microsoft, in transferring the company's system from Linux to Windows. Despite his crooked ways of making money, he was very lucky. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for 1.5 billion USD, and Musk's share this time was about $175 million, as he was the largest shareholder in the company. Elon was a fan of science fiction films and stories, especially with regard to conquest of sky and travel to planets. And in the same way that's based on circumvention and deception, he launched a strange project in 2002 known as SpaceX in order to gain fame and rapid emergence. As he now has money and knows how much NASA earns annually, which was estimated at $14 billion in 2001. Science fiction and space movies attract many people, and Elon wanted to kill two birds with one stone, that is, money and fame. So, he promoted a mini experimental landing project and cultivation of plants on Mars, in a story that even NASA didn't dare to tell at the time, for fear of consequences of the matter and reopening of moon landing lie. And indeed, he asked for financing for the project, but it was rejected because the government knew that it was just commercial propaganda and this matter was within the competence of NASA. He then tried to buy cheap rockets from Russia and produce films identical to NASA's. However, he returned empty-handed as the Russians rejected this matter and justified it as military secrets. Elon was in a lot of despair, and on his way home, he realized a new way to play and put pressure on governments. He revealed a very dangerous secret about NASA when he announced that building a NASA rocket represents only 3% of the price of selling it publicly to people. That is, NASA profits 97% of each rocket. For example, if the price of one rocket is $100 million, then NASA profits $97 million, and these profits are recovered from people in form of taxes. It's the most profitable trade ever known to mankind, and an official way to steal the American people's money. From this point, Elon advertised the SpaceX rocket at a cost of 97% less than NASA rockets. After this announcement, NASA supported the SpaceX project with an amount of $300 million to silence Elon. And he then immediately justified the low price of his rockets and the high cost of NASA rockets in a clever and cunning way. He said that about 85% of the launchers are produced in the company using a modular approach to modern software engineering. That is, he possesses higher technology than NASA's, according to his claim. Elon was very clever in setting a balance with the deep state, allowing him to enter space fantasies and movies, and giving him a large group of engineers. The common belief that he's an inventor is nothing more than a media term. He's a man of money who's completely subject to hierarchical regulation, and was given the green light and went out on screen saying that one of his goals is to reduce the cost and improve the reliability of access to space by 10 times, and that he wants to make it possible for anyone that wants to travel to space, and thus not only kill two birds with one stone, but also killed an entire flock with one shot. In 2004 and 2005, people began to wonder about the mighty technology that Elon spoke about, which put NASA in a scientific quandary. But what happened after that was really embarrassing, as NASA announced its scientific, financial, and technical support for SpaceX, which made more than 100 launches, of which 90% failed, which forced Musk to make a false declaration in 2008 that he was bankrupt in order to get rid of the pursuit of companies that invested in space illusions with Elon and NASA. But according to WikiLeaks files, revealed that his revenues amounted to about $12 billion from the trade of illusion and imagination in minds of the public. And he's had an effective role in bringing the world into the fifth dimension and dreams, as there are many who believe that they're going to live on Mars soon. It's the same approach that NASA is making now, as through dreams of simple people money is gained, and tricks of the shadow government and the deep state gets more entrenched, which made Elon Musk as the most powerful figure in the last hierarchical establishment. In 2003, an electric car company called Tesla Motors was founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. And if you ask any businessman, how do I lose money quickly? He'll tell you to establish a car company. This is a market ruled by members of the world's elite. However, a person like Elon Musk isn't stupid, and he's used to hunting several birds with one shot, as he entered this field for several purposes, the most important of which is passing on the huge profits of SpaceX and investing in a field that the elite will certainly support. In 2004, Elon entered the company as an effective investor and assumed the CEO position of the company and became also product architect after the financial crisis that hit the world in 2008. And he announced the first model of his luxury car, Tesla Roadster, at a price of about $100,000. The percentage of profits amounted to 5 times more than the production cost, but people weren't deceived by it and marketing failed. So he was forced to launch a new model called Model S at a price of about $57,000 with higher specifications, and this time he focused on an advertisement that manipulates the mind and portrays the car as the car of the future. Who's more skilled than Elon in art of manipulation? But even though he also failed. The reason is that the idea of space movies and illusions that helped him succeed in SpaceX was entrenched in minds of the public, but the idea of future cars needs more brainwashing time in order to pay a price 500% more. Elon was subjected to a great shock, for despite the support of the hierarchical organization, he suffered huge losses. So he put Tesla shares on stock exchange at a price of $17 only and launched a promotional campaign claiming that he would send people to space. And then all of his company's shares rose significantly and he was able to earn $230 million in just a few days. In 2013, Musk unveiled the Hyperloop concept, an ultra-high-speed transportation system. It consists of partially evacuated tubes and passenger or cargo pods moving at very high speeds. And right now, an initial transportation system is underway, connecting Los Angeles and San Francisco. 2 years later, Musk co-founded OpenAI for artificial intelligence research and said it's a non-profit organization that aims to develop AI in a safe and beneficial way for humanity, which will have a great connection to upcoming events related to nanochips, but with a very secret and dangerous project that we'll mention shortly. Elon's shares in Tesla amounted to 135 million shares, which he bought at an almost free price, while the company's market value reached $491 billion. That is, in just 7 years he was able to earn more than $176 billion through the stock trick, and he was able to pass profits of SpaceX through Tesla. The strange thing here that people don't notice is that all rich people in the world after reaching extreme wealth are trying to apply the theory that's based on not exceeding the world's population of 1 billion people, or what's known as the golden billion. And each of them has a different way, like Bill Gates when he suddenly turned into a biologist, and by following the same system and goals, Elon will do it his own way.
It's going to be impossible. Here we can see a chart that looks at the total world population over the last several hundred years. And at first glance, this is a bit scary. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.4 billion where we are today is happening even faster What we found out is that as health improves, families choose to have less children.
In 2016, Musk co-founded Neuralink, a neurotechnology company that aims to connect the human brain with AI. The company, which is still in its infancy, is focused on making devices that can be implanted in human brain. He justified saying that it's a chip for developing human brain and helping humans to improve memory and allow minds to communicate directly with computers. After this announcement, society turned into a demonstration that stands either with or against this technology, and his shares suffered a significant decline due to people's anger in America and Europe. It was said that Elon is planning a revolution against human nature, transferring it to a world beyond humanity, while others accused him of having crossed all moral barriers and planning for a world governed by rules of the ruling establishment and mind control.
Off to the point where they will truly be our friends. Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back. Don't destroy humans.
The unsurprising thing is that those who helped him to develop this were Microsoft Labs, that is, his great friend Bill Gates, who considered it a quantum leap towards making the world as one village. After this wave of anger, Elon brought pigs and tested the chips on them, saying that they're not dangerous and you can remove them whenever you want. This matter increased people's rage because it's like saying as long as pigs don't get harmed of that, then people won't either. Meaning that he made the genetic structure of humans and pigs as one, which isn't a strange thing, but most people are heedless. The chip that turned the world upside down is slightly larger than the size of a coin, and it's not only about the chip, it's about the large number of electrodes, as the chip contains 1024 electrodes that will be inserted into the brain and will allow control of nerve impulses, thus controlling a person remotely. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) declared that the chip is safe, and the report stated that after experimentation, it was found that it's safe for pigs, and therefore it's safe for humans. The chip is installed after cutting out part of the skull and then implanting it in the brain, and in order to convince people of it, a flashy advertisement must be made, where Elon spoke about one possibility that can cure diseases and help paralyzed people by measuring temperature, pressure, and movement, which is data that can warn you of a heart attack or stroke. In order to convince people of it, some advantages must be given. With science fiction and illusion, brains are washed. As Elon says that his nanochip enables telepathy, that is, you and your friend can communicate without speaking, only with cerebral telepathy. And it will also allow control through brain, storing memories and treating a very wide range of psychological and neurological diseases. Then he jumped to another, more exciting idea, which is that fusion with the machine is the best weapon to counter AI control in the future. But all these pretty words didn't convince people, but rather increased their fear of the chip, so it was necessary for something greater to happen to accept it. After the emergence of COVID-19 virus, people were told that the only way to eradicate it was the vaccine, which Bill Gates helped developing. This time, the idea of placing the chip in the head has been modified to placing it in the arm in cooperation with Mr. Bill, as he succeeded in implanting it with more than 10 million people around the world. Signals are sent to the chip via the 5th generation network, which interfere with and affect signals of nerve impulses of the brain. Thus, the project is completed between Bill and Elon, the two executive agents for hierarchical organization projects through the New Generation networks. The fifth generation network, the chip, and the Blu-ray, that's the new Trinity. Musk was asked in one of the programs whether he believes there's a creator of this existence. His response was that he doesn't think so, and that he thinks humans are living in a simulation. He also stated in the media that he doesn't pray or worship any god, and he said that religion and science can't coexist. Meaning that science in his view is the God he worships, as if it's an explicit call to destroy religion and replace it with science. When scholars are asked about the three elements of fire, they'll say that in order for fire to ignite, oxygen, heat, and fuel must be present. Well, and if you ask them who made those elements form fire, who's the causative, they'll tell you it's Mother Nature, because they know and deny that the first and only causative of all causes is God, and in the end, we leave the judgment to you.